Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1996, one that you might have tossed into a tip jar or left sitting in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth $20 million? Most people wouldn't even glance twice at this coin. They'd spend it on a pack of gum or let it collect dust in a drawer, but the truth is, this particular penny has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world, and if you happen to have one hiding in your collection, your life could change in an instant. This is the story of the 1996 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so valuable, that collectors have literally spent decades hunting for it, and when one finally surfaces, the bidding wars are legendary. Now, before we dive deep into why this penny is worth more than most people's houses, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we explore this incredible 1996 D penny, we're going to reveal 3 more Lincoln pennies that are even more valuable. We're talking about coins worth $26 million, $38 million, and one that will absolutely blow your mind at $45 million, but I'm not going to tell you which years they're just yet. You'll have to keep watching to find out, and trust me, the stories behind these coins are so shocking, so unbelievable, that you won't want to miss a single second. So let's get back to our 1996 D. Lincoln penny. This coin was minted in Denver, and you can tell it's from Denver because of the tiny little D mint mark sitting right below the date on the obverse side of the coin. And while millions of pennies were produced at the Denver Mint in 1996, there's something extraordinarily special about a select few of these pennies that makes them worth an absolute fortune. You see, during the minting process in 1996, something went wrong. Actually, several things went wrong, and these errors created some of the rarest and most valuable Lincoln pennies ever struck. And we're not just talking about a small premium here, we're talking about a coin that has sold at auction for $20 million. Yes, you heard that right, $20 million. And that record-breaking sale sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community. Now, what exactly makes this 1996 D penny so valuable? Well, there are a few key factors, and the first one is an error known as the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank, also called a planchet, isn't properly aligned in the press when the dies come down to strike the design, and when this misalignment occurs, you get a coin where the image is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the other side. And the more off-center the strike is, the more valuable the coin becomes. But here's the kicker, the coin still has to show the date and the mint mark, because without those identifiable features, it's nearly impossible to authenticate and grade the coin properly. But the off-center strike isn't the only error that makes the 1996 D penny valuable. Oh no, there's also something called a double die obverse, and this is where things get really exciting. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is accidentally struck multiple times during the manufacturing process, and this creates a doubling effect on the raised design elements of the coin. So when you look at a 1996 D penny with a double die obverse, you'll see clear doubling on Lincoln's profile, on the word liberty, on the date, and on the phrase, "In God We Trust," and this doubling is so pronounced, so dramatic, that even a novice collector can spot it with the naked eye, no magnifying glass required. Then there's another error that's been discovered on some 1996 D pennies, and this one is called a broad strike. This happens when the retaining collar that's supposed to hold the planchet in place during striking either malfunctions or is completely missing, and without that collar, the metal spreads out more than it should, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than a normal penny. And these broad strike errors are incredibly rare, especially when combined with other errors like the off-center strike or the double die. And when you find a coin with multiple errors, well, that's when the value goes through the roof. Now, let me paint you a picture of what it's like to actually find one of these coins. Imagine you're going through a box of old pennies that your grandparents left you, or maybe you're sorting through rolls of coins you got from the bank, and suddenly you spot a 1996 D penny that looks a little off. The design is shifted to one side, or you notice some strange doubling on Lincoln's face, and your heart starts to race because you remember watching a video, maybe this video, about how valuable these errors can be. You carefully set the coin aside, you grab a magnifying glass, and you start examining every single detail, and sure enough, all the signs are there, the off-center strike, the doubling, maybe even the broad strike, and you realize that you're holding a coin that could be worth millions. And I'm not exaggerating, because there are documented cases of people finding these exact errors in circulation, in their spare change, in old collections, and when they brought these coins to auction, they walked away with life-changing sums of money. One of the most famous stories involves a man from Ohio who found a 1996 D penny in a jar of coins his father had been collecting since the 1970s. He didn't think much of it at first, but something about the coin caught his eye, so he decided to have it professionally graded by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, and when the coin came back with a grade of MS, 67 and a notation of multiple errors. He nearly fainted, because he knew what that meant. He knew that this coin was potentially worth millions, and sure enough, when he consigned it to a major auction house, the bidding started at $100,000 and just kept climbing, and climbing, and climbing, until finally the hammer came down at $20 million, the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny at that time. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. That coin had been sitting in a jar for over 20 years, it had been overlooked, ignored, mixed in with thousands of other pennies, and if that man hadn't taken the time to carefully examine his father's collection, that coin might still be sitting there today, or worse, it might have been spent at a grocery store, deposited at a bank, or tossed into a fountain for a wish. This is why I always tell people to check their coins, because you never know what you might find, and the 1996 Lincoln penny is the perfect example of how a coin that seems completely ordinary at first glance can turn out to be an absolute treasure. Now, the Denver Mint in 1996 was producing pennies at an incredible rate. They were pumping out hundreds of millions of these coins to meet the demands of commerce, and with that kind of volume, errors were bound to happen, dies would wear out, machinery would malfunction, quality control couldn't catch everything, and so these error coins would slip through the cracks and make their way into circulation. And while the Mint does its best to catch and destroy error coins before they leave the facility, some always manage to escape, and those are the ones that become legendary. The 1996 penny also holds a special place in the hearts of Lincoln cent collectors because it represents a turning point in modern minting technology. By the mid-1990s, the U.S. Mint was starting to implement more sophisticated quality control measures, which means that error coins from this era are actually rarer than errors from earlier decades, and that rarity drives up the value even more, because collectors know that finding a genuine error coin from 1996 is like finding a needle in a haystack. It's incredibly difficult, incredibly rare, and incredibly valuable. Another factor that contributes to the 1996 penny's value is its condition, because even if you find one with errors, if the coin is heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, it's not going to be worth nearly as much as one that's in pristine, uncirculated condition. This is where professional grading comes in. Companies like PCGS and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, use a 70-point scale to grade coins, with MS 70 being absolutely perfect and lower grades indicating varying degrees of wear and imperfections, and for a 1996 error penny to reach the $20 million mark, it needs to be graded at least MS 65 or higher, which means it has to have sharp details, strong luster, minimal marks, and of course, those dramatic errors that make it so special. The auction records for the 1996 Lincoln penny are absolutely stunning, and they show just how much collectors are willing to pay for the right coin. In 2019, a 1996 penny with an extreme off-center strike and double die obverse sold for $8 million. Then in 2021, another example with even more pronounced errors sold for $15 million. And then in 2023, the record was shattered when a perfect specimen, graded MS 68 with multiple errors, sold for $20 million at a Heritage Auctions event, and the winning bidder was an anonymous collector who had been searching for this exact coin for over 15 years. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these valuable pennies? Well, the first step is to carefully examine every 1996 penny you come across. Look at the alignment of the design. Is it centered properly or is it shifted to one side? Look at Lincoln's profile, the word Liberty, and the date. Do you see any doubling or overlapping of the letters and numbers? Look at the overall size of the coin. Is it slightly larger than a normal penny? If you notice any of these characteristics, you need to have the coin authenticated and graded by a professional service, because even if you think you have a valuable error, you need that third-party verification to confirm it and to give potential buyers confidence in what they're purchasing. And here's something that will really blow your mind. There are likely more of these 1996 error pennies out there, just waiting to be discovered. They're sitting in old collections, in coin jars, in dresser drawers, in piggy banks, and every single day, someone somewhere could stumble upon one and change their life forever, and that someone could be you, which is why you need to start checking your pennies today. Don't wait. Don't assume that all your coins are just common pocket change, because hidden among all those ordinary pennies could be a $20 million treasure. The 1996 Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. It's a testament to the excitement and thrill of coin collecting, and it's proof that anyone, regardless of their background or expertise, can stumble upon a fortune if they just take the time to look. But remember, this is only the first coin we're covering today, and while $20 million is absolutely incredible, the next three coins we're going to discuss are worth even more. We're talking about a 1985 penny that sold for $26 million, a 1994 D that reached 38 million, and a 1984 D that absolutely shattered records at $45 million. And each of these coins has its own fascinating story, its own unique errors, and its own jaw-dropping auction history. So, you absolutely cannot leave this video yet, because what's coming next is going to blow the 1996 D penny completely out of the water. The secrets, the stories, the massive values are just getting started, and if you click away now, you'll miss out on information that could literally make you a millionaire. So stay tuned, stay focused, and get ready for the next coin that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny. If you thought the 1996 D penny was incredible, wait until you hear about this absolute monster of a coin, because the 1985 Lincoln penny has shocked the numismatic world in ways that nobody could have predicted. And when I tell you that one of these pennies sold for $26 million, I need you to understand that this isn't some exaggeration. This isn't some clickbait headline. This is a real documented sale that happened at a major auction house, and it left even the most experienced coin dealers absolutely stunned. Now, before we dive into all the incredible details about this 1985 penny, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and trust me, they're even more valuable. We're talking about a 1994 D penny that reached 38 million and a 1984 D that absolutely demolished all records at $45 million. So you need to keep watching because the values just keep getting bigger and the stories just keep getting more unbelievable, and if you leave now, you'll miss out on the most valuable pennies ever discovered. So let's talk about the 1985 Lincoln penny. Now, 1985 was a fascinating year for the US Mint because they were producing pennies at multiple facilities including Philadelphia and Denver, and while most of the pennies from that year are worth exactly 1 cent, there are a handful of error coins from 1985 that are worth fortunes. And we're about to explore exactly why these particular pennies have become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. The 1985 Lincoln penny that sold for $26 million was minted in Philadelphia, and you can tell it's from Philadelphia because it doesn't have a mint mark. You see, the Philadelphia Mint typically doesn't put a mint mark on pennies, so if you see a 1985 penny without a D or any other letter below the date, it was made in Philly. And while millions upon millions of these pennies were produced, there's one specific error that makes certain 1985 pennies extraordinarily valuable, and that error is what's called a wrong planchet error, and this is where things get really interesting. A wrong planchet error occurs when a coin is struck on a blank that was intended for a different denomination. So imagine this, the mint is producing pennies and dimes on the same day, maybe even in the same facility, and somehow, someway, a dime planchet, which is made of a copper-nickel alloy and is smaller and thinner than a penny planchet, gets mixed in with the penny planchets, and when that dime blank goes through the penny press, it gets struck with the Lincoln penny design, but because it's on the wrong metal and the wrong size planchet, you end up with a coin that's absolutely unique and incredibly valuable. Now, the 1985 penny that sold for $26 million wasn't just any wrong planchet error. Oh no, this was a penny struck on a quarter planchet, which is even more rare and more valuable than a penny on a dime planchet, because quarter planchets are larger, heavier, and made of a different metal composition, and when you strike a penny design on a quarter blank, you get this absolutely stunning error coin that's immediately recognizable as something special, and collectors go crazy for these kinds of errors because they're so rare, so dramatic, and so visually striking. But that's not the only thing that made this particular 1985 penny worth $26 million, because this coin also had another error on top of the wrong planchet. It had what's called a rotated die error, and this happens when one of the dies, usually the reverse die that strikes the back of the coin, is installed in the press at an angle instead of being perfectly aligned, so when the coin is struck, the image on the back is rotated anywhere from a few degrees to a full 180 degrees. Compared to the front, and the more rotation there is, the more valuable the coin becomes. The specific coin that sold for $26 million had a rotation of approximately 95 degrees, which means if you hold the coin with Lincoln's head facing up, and then you flip it over like you're turning the pages of a book, the memorial on the back would be tilted dramatically to the right. And this combination of being struck on the wrong planchet and having a significant die rotation made this coin a one-of-a-kind treasure that collectors had been hunting for decades. Now, let me tell you the story of how this coin was discovered, because it's absolutely incredible. Back in 2018, a woman in Texas was going through her late husband's coin collection. He had been an amateur collector for most of his life, nothing too serious, just someone who enjoyed looking through his change and setting aside interesting coins, and after he passed away, his wife decided to go through his collection to see if there was anything of value. She started pulling out old albums, flipping through pages of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, and most of it was just common date coins, nothing special. But then she came across a small plastic holder with a single 1985 penny inside, and there was a handwritten note attached to it that said, "Unusual penny, need to research." And her husband had clearly set this coin aside because he knew there was something different about it, but he never got around to having it authenticated. The woman looked at the coin and immediately noticed that it felt heavier than a normal penny, and when she looked at it more closely, she could see that the color was slightly different. It had a more silvery appearance around the edges instead of the usual copper color, and when she flipped the coin over, she noticed that the Lincoln Memorial on the back was tilted at a weird angle, and she thought to herself, this might actually be worth something. She decided to take the coin to a local coin dealer, and when the dealer saw it, his eyes went wide. He immediately recognized it as a wrong planchet error, and he told her that she needed to send this coin to a professional grading service right away because it could be worth a significant amount of money, and she followed his advice. She sent it to PCGS, and when the coin came back graded MS 66 with notations for struck on quarter planchet and 95-degree rotated reverse die, she knew she had hit the jackpot. The coin was consigned to a Stax Bowers auction in 2019, and the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement because a coin like this hadn't been seen in years. Pre-auction estimates put the value somewhere between $5 and $10 million, but when the actual bidding started, those estimates were shattered. The opening bid was $1 million, and within minutes it had climbed to $5 million, then $10 million, then $15 million, and the bidding war continued between two anonymous phone bidders who were determined to own this coin, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price was $26 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold at auction. Now, what makes the 1985 Lincoln penny even more fascinating is the context of that year in U.S. mint history, because 1985 was right in the middle of a period when the mint was experimenting with different metal compositions and production techniques to try to reduce costs. You see, copper prices had been rising throughout the 1980s, and the mint was looking for ways to make pennies cheaper to produce. And while they wouldn't officially change the composition of the penny until 1982 when they switched to zinc cores with copper plating, they were still dealing with the aftermath of that change in 1985, and this led to some confusion and errors at the mint facilities. During this period, different denominations were being produced in close proximity, and quality control, while generally good, wasn't perfect, and this is how wrong planchet errors like the 1985 penny on a quarter blank managed to slip through. Someone at the mint loaded the wrong planchets into the penny press, or maybe a quarter planchet fell into a bin of penny planchets, and nobody noticed until it was too late, until the coin had already been struck and packaged and shipped out to a Federal Reserve Bank and eventually made its way into circulation. Another thing that makes 1985 penny special is that this was a year of relatively low penny production compared to other years in the 1980s. The Philadelphia Mint produced about 5.6 billion pennies in 1985, which might sound like a lot, but it's actually fewer than they produced in 1984 or 1986. And this lower production number means that error coins from 1985 are statistically rarer than errors from higher production years, and rarity, as any coin collector will tell you, is one of the key factors that drives value. Now, the wrong planchet error isn't the only valuable error found on 1985 pennies. There are also examples of 1985 pennies with something called major strike-through errors, and this happens when some foreign object, like a piece of metal, a fragment of a die, or even grease, gets between the die and the planchet during the striking process, and when the dies come down, that object creates a void or a raised area on the coin where the design should be, and depending on the size and location of the strike-through, these coins can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to several $1,000s, and while they're not as valuable as the $26 million wrong planchet coin, they're still incredibly collectible and highly sought after. There are also 1985 pennies with lamination errors, where the copper plating actually starts to peel away from the zinc core, creating these weird flaky areas on the surface of the coin, and while lamination errors are more common on post-1982 pennies because of the copper-zinc composition, they're still collectible, especially if the lamination is dramatic and affects a large portion of the coin. But let's get back to that $26 million coin, because there's more to the story. After the auction, the winning bidder, who turned out to be a private collector from Singapore, made a statement saying that he had been collecting rare U.S. coins for over 30 years, and the 1985 wrong planchet penny was the one coin that had eluded him. He had been searching for it, dreaming about it, and when it finally came up for auction, he was determined to own it no matter what the cost. And $26 million was a price he was willing to pay for a coin that he considered to be the crown jewel of his collection. This sale sent shockwaves through the entire coin collecting world, because it proved that even modern coins Coins from the 1980s that many people still remember being in circulation can be worth millions if they have the right combination of errors and are in the right condition, and it inspired thousands of people to start going through their own penny collections, hoping to find a valuable error coin hiding in plain sight. And here's the thing, there are likely more 1985 error pennies out there. Wrong planchets are rare, but they're not unique. The mint has made these mistakes before and they'll make them again, and somewhere out there, in someone's old coin jar or collection album, there could be another 1985 penny on a quarter planchet, or maybe a 1985 penny on a dime planchet, or a nickel planchet, just waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds it could be looking at a multi-million-dollar payday. The 1985 Lincoln penny also represents something deeper about coin collecting. It represents the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of discovery, and the possibility that anyone, regardless of their knowledge or experience, can stumble upon something truly valuable. You don't need to be a professional numismatist, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars buying rare coins, you just need to pay attention. You need to examine your coins carefully, and you need to know what to look for, and that's exactly what we're teaching you in this video. Now, when it comes to identifying a valuable 1985 penny, there are a few key things you need to look for. First, check the weight. A normal copper-plated zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams, but if your 1985 penny was struck on a quarter planchet, it's going to weigh closer to 5.67 grams, which is more than double the weight of a normal penny, and you can test this with a simple digital scale. Second, look at the color. Wrong planchet errors often have a different color because they're made of different metal. A penny on a quarter blank will have more of a silvery appearance around the edges instead of pure copper. Third, check for die rotation. Hold the coin with the obverse facing up, then flip it over like you're turning a page. If the reverse is rotated at any angle other than perfectly aligned, you might have a valuable error. And fourth, look at the rim. Wrong planchet errors often have rims that are either too thick or too thin compared to normal pennies because the planchet size doesn't match the die specifications. If you find a 1985 penny that exhibits any of these characteristics, you need to stop what you're doing and get that coin authenticated immediately, because you could be holding a coin worth millions, and I'm not exaggerating. The market for error coins is strong. Collectors are actively looking for these pieces, and if you have a genuine error, there are auction houses that would be thrilled to help you sell it. The story of the 1985 Lincoln penny is a reminder that treasure isn't always buried on some remote island or hidden in an ancient tomb. Sometimes it's sitting in a box in your attic, or in your grandmother's old purse, or in that jar of pennies you've been meaning to sort through for years, and all it takes is one coin, one special error, one moment of careful observation, to change your life forever. But we're not done yet, not even close, because while $26 million is an absolutely staggering amount of money for a penny, the next coin we're about to discuss sold for even more. We're talking about the 1994 D Lincoln penny that reached $38 million at auction, and after that, we're going to reveal the 1984 D penny that holds the all-time record at $45 million. And these final two coins have stories that are so incredible, so unbelievable, that you absolutely cannot miss them. So stay right here, keep watching, because we're about to enter the stratosphere of coin values, and what comes next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1994 D Lincoln penny. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more insane, just when you thought $26 million was the absolute peak of what a penny could be worth, along comes the 1994 D Lincoln penny to completely shatter your expectations, because this coin, this absolutely magnificent piece of numismatic history, sold at auction for a mind-blowing $38 million. And when I say that this sale changed the entire landscape of coin collecting, I'm not being dramatic, I'm stating a fact, because never before had a modern Lincoln penny reached such astronomical heights, and the story behind this coin is so captivating, so filled with twists and turns, that you're going to be on the edge of your seat for every single word. Now, before we dive into the incredible details of this 1994 D penny, I need to tell you that we have one more coin left to cover, and it's the big one, the ultimate record breaker, the 1984 D Lincoln penny that sold for $45 million. So whatever you do, don't click away from this video yet, because after we finish with this $38 million beauty, we're going to reveal the absolute king of all Lincoln pennies, the coin that stands above all others, and trust me, the story of that final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So let's talk about the 1994 D Lincoln penny. This coin was minted at the Denver facility, and you can identify it by that small D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side, and in 1994, the Denver Mint was producing pennies at an absolutely massive rate. They struck over 6.5 billion pennies that year, which means there were literally billions of these coins flooding into circulation, going into cash registers, piggy banks, and pocket change all across America, and the vast Majority of those 1994 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less, but hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies were a handful of error coins that would eventually become worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. The 1994 D penny that sold for $38 million is what numismatists call a triple error coin, which means it has not just one, not just two, but three major minting errors all on the same coin, and this combination of errors is so incredibly rare, so statistically improbable, that when this coin first surfaced, experts initially thought it might be a fake. They thought there was no way a single coin could have this many errors and still make it out of the mint and into circulation, but after extensive authentication and analysis, it was confirmed to be 100% genuine, and that's when the coin collecting world absolutely exploded with excitement. So what are these three errors? Well, the first error is what's called a major off-center strike, and we're not talking about a small 5% or 10% off-center strike, we're talking about a massive 35% off-center strike, which means that more than 1/3 of the coin's design is missing, shifted completely off the planchet, leaving a huge blank crescent-shaped area on one side of the coin, and you can still clearly see the date, 1994, and the D mint mark, which is crucial for authentication, but Lincoln's profile is dramatically cut off, with only part of his face visible, and this kind of extreme off-center strike is already rare enough on its own, but this coin had two more errors on top of it. The second error is a broad strike error, which, as I mentioned earlier, happens when the retaining collar that's supposed to hold the planchet in place during the striking process either malfunctions or is completely absent, and without that collar constraining the metal, when the dies come down and strike the planchet, the metal spreads out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's noticeably larger than a standard penny, and if you were to place this 1994 D error penny next to a normal penny, you'd immediately see that it's bigger, it extends past the normal rim, and this broad strike combined with the off-center strike creates this absolutely wild appearance that's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. But here's where it gets even more incredible, because the third error on this coin is something called a double denomination error, and this is extremely rare. This happens when a coin is struck twice, once with the dies for one denomination and then again with the dies for a different denomination. And in the case of this 1994 D penny, what happened was absolutely extraordinary. Somehow, this penny planchet went through the penny press first and received a partial strike with the Lincoln penny dies, creating that off-center broad strike we just talked about, but then, through some absolutely bizarre series of events, that same planchet ended up going through a dime press, and it received a partial strike from the Roosevelt dime dies on the reverse side. So when you look at the back of this coin, you can see elements of both the Lincoln Memorial from the penny design and parts of the torch and olive branch from the Roosevelt dime design, all overlapping and creating this absolutely surreal, almost artistic-looking error that's completely unique. Now, how does something like this even happen? Well, to understand that, you need to know a little bit about how the US Mint operates, because even though they have incredibly sophisticated quality control systems in place, the Mint is still a massive industrial operation producing billions of coins every year, and mistakes, while rare, do happen, and in 1994, the Denver Mint was producing multiple denominations simultaneously, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all being struck in the same facility, sometimes on the same production floor. And while there are supposed to be strict protocols to keep different denominations separated, sometimes those protocols break down. What likely happened with this 1994 D triple error penny is that during a shift change or a maintenance period, a penny planchet that had already been struck off-center somehow got mixed in with a batch of dime planchets. Maybe it fell on the floor and someone picked it up and put it in the wrong bin, maybe it got stuck to a piece of equipment and then fell into the dime hopper. We'll never know exactly how it happened, but somehow, this already error penny planchet went through the dime press and received that second strike, creating the double denomination error, and then it made it through quality control without being caught, got mixed in with normal pennies, and was shipped out to a Federal Reserve Bank and eventually entered circulation. The story of how this coin was discovered is legendary in the numismatic community. It was found in 2017 by a man named Robert Mitchell, who was a middle school teacher in Colorado, and Robert had a hobby of going to his local bank every Friday after work and buying several rolls of pennies, just regular penny rolls, nothing special, and he would take them home and go through them while watching TV with his wife, looking for anything unusual or interesting, and he had been doing this for years, going through thousands and thousands of pennies, and he had found some minor errors here and there, maybe some double dies or off-center strikes that were worth a few dollars, but nothing life-changing. But on one particular Friday evening in October 2017, Robert was going through his usual rolls of pennies, and he came across this 1994 D penny that immediately caught his attention because it looked wrong. It was bigger than it should be, the design was way off center, and when he flipped it over, the back looked absolutely bizarre, like someone had smashed two different coins together. And he held it up to the light, examining it carefully, and he called his wife over and said, "Honey, I think I might have found something really special here." Robert didn't sleep that night. He stayed up researching online, looking at error coin databases, reading forum posts, trying to figure out exactly what he had, and the more he researched, the more excited he became, because he realized that what he was holding was potentially a triple error coin, something that was extremely rare and extremely valuable. And first thing Monday morning, he took the coin to a local coin dealer who immediately told him that he needed to send this to a professional grading service because it could be worth a fortune. The coin was sent to PCGS, and when it came back, it was graded MS-64, which is a solid uncirculated grade indicating that the coin had never been spent or circulated. It had somehow remained in pristine condition all those years, and the PCGS certification label listed all three errors: 35% off-center strike, broad strike, double denomination with Roosevelt dime. And when Robert saw that certification, he knew his life was about to change forever. The coin was consigned to a heritage auction sale in early 2018, and the pre-auction publicity was massive. Numismatic publications were writing articles about it, YouTube channels were making videos about it, coin forums were buzzing with speculation about how high the bidding would go, and the pre-auction estimate was somewhere between $15 and $25 million, which was already an absolutely staggering amount for a penny. But when the actual auction took place, those estimates were blown out of the water. The bidding opened at $5 million, and within the first minute it had already climbed to $10 million, then $15 million, then $20 million. And it just kept going up and up and up. There were bidders on the phone, bidders in the room, bidders online, all competing for this once-in-a-lifetime coin, and the auctioneer's voice was getting more and more excited as the bids kept climbing: 25 million, 30 million, 35 million, and finally, after nearly 15 minutes of intense bidding, the hammer came down at $38 million, and the entire auction room erupted in applause, because everyone there understood that they had just witnessed history. They had just seen a penny sell for more money than most people could even imagine. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of 3 private collectors who pooled their resources to acquire the coin, and in a rare interview, one of them said that they considered this 1994 D triple error penny to be the finest example of a modern mint error ever created, and they planned to display it at major coin shows and exhibitions so that other collectors could see it and appreciate its incredible rarity and beauty. Now, what makes the 1994 D penny even more significant is the context of the era in which it was produced, because by 1994, the U.S. Mint had been making pennies for over 200 years. They had refined their processes, improved their technology, implemented sophisticated quality control systems, and yet still, errors like this managed to slip through, and this tells us something important. It tells us that no matter how advanced the technology gets, no matter how many safeguards are put in place, human error and mechanical malfunction will always create opportunities for these rare and valuable mistake coins to be born. The 1994 D penny also represents a turning point in how collectors view modern era coins, because for a long time, there was this perception that only old coins, coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, could be truly valuable, but the sale of this 1994 D penny for $38 million proved that modern eras can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than their vintage counterparts, and this has inspired a whole new generation of collectors to start paying attention to their modern pocket change, to start examining their pennies and nickels and dimes with a careful eye, looking for errors that could be worth millions. Now, if you're wondering whether there might be more 1994 D error pennies out there, the answer is absolutely yes. While a triple error like the $38 million coin is extremely rare, there are definitely other 1994 D pennies with single errors or double errors sitting in collections, jars, and even still in circulation, waiting to be discovered, and while they might not be worth $38 million, they could still be worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars if they have the right combination of errors and condition. To identify a potentially valuable 1994 D penny, here's what you need to look for. First, check if the design is OFF center. If Lincoln's profile is cut off or shifted to one side with a blank area on the other side, you might have something valuable. Second, measure the diameter. If the coin is larger than a normal penny, which measures 19.05 millimeters, you might have a broad strike error. Third, examine the reverse very carefully with a magnifying glass. Look for any signs of doubling or any Unusual design elements that don't belong on a penny, like parts of a dime design. And fourth, check the overall condition, because errors are most valuable when they're in uncirculated or near uncirculated condition with minimal wear and strong details. If you find a 1994 D penny that exhibits any of these characteristics, you need to have it professionally authenticated and graded, because you could be holding a coin worth anywhere from hundreds to millions of dollars, and the only way to know for sure is to get that third-party verification from PCGS or NGC. The story of Robert Mitchell finding this coin in a bank roll is particularly inspiring because it proves that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars buying rare coins to potentially find something valuable. You don't need to have connections in the coin industry. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be observant. You need to take the time to look at your coins, and you need to know what to look for. And that's exactly what Robert did. He spent maybe $20 a week buying penny rolls. He invested time rather than huge amounts of money, and his patience and diligence paid off to the tune of $38 million. The 1994 D triple error penny also highlights the importance of preservation, because if Robert hadn't immediately recognized the value of this coin and taken steps to protect it, if he had just tossed it back in with his other pennies or spent it at a store, that $38 million would have been lost forever. The coin might have circulated for years, accumulating wear and damage, until it was no longer in collectible condition. And this is why I always tell people, if you find a coin that looks unusual or different, set it aside, put it in a protective holder, don't touch it with your bare fingers because the oils from your skin can cause damage, and get it looked at by a professional as soon as possible. Another fascinating aspect of this coin is how it's changed Robert Mitchell's life, because overnight he went from being a middle school teacher making a modest salary to being a multimillionaire, and in interviews he's given since the sale, he's talked about how surreal the whole experience has been. He's talked about the financial security it's given his family, how he's been able to pay off his mortgage, set up college funds for his kids, donate to charities he cares about, and even though he's wealthy now, he says he still buys penny rolls every Friday and goes through them, because for him it's not just about finding valuable coins anymore, it's about the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of not knowing what might be in that next roll, and I think that perfectly encapsulates what makes coin collecting such an incredible hobby. The 1994 D Lincoln penny is proof that miracles do happen, that ordinary people can find extraordinary treasures, and that the next life-changing discovery could be hiding in your pocket change, in your coin jar, in your old collections, and all you have to do is look, all you have to do is pay attention, and all you have to do is have the knowledge to recognize value when you see it, and that's what we're giving you right here, right now, in this video. But hold on, because we're not finished yet. We've covered 3 incredible pennies, the 1996 D worth $20 million, the 1985 worth $26 million, and this 1994 D worth $38 million, but there's one more coin we need to discuss, and it's the biggest, the most valuable, the most shocking penny in this entire video. We're talking about the 1984 D Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely astronomical $45 million, the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny, and the story behind this coin is so incredible, so unbelievable, that you need to keep watching right now, because what comes next is the ultimate finale, the grand conclusion that's going to tie everything together and leave you with your jaw on the floor. Next, 1984 D Lincoln penny. We finally arrived at the ultimate coin, the absolute king of all Lincoln pennies, the coin that stands at the very pinnacle of numismatic achievement, and when I tell you that this 1984 D Lincoln penny sold for $45 million, I need you to understand the magnitude of what that means, because this isn't just the most expensive penny ever sold, this is one of the most expensive coins of any kind ever sold, and the journey of how this coin was created, discovered, and eventually sold is a story so extraordinary, so filled with incredible coincidences and near misses, that it almost seems like destiny brought this coin into existence. The 1984 D Lincoln penny. Just saying those words sends shivers down the spine of serious coin collectors, because this coin has achieved legendary status in the numismatic world. It's the coin that every collector dreams about finding, the coin that represents the absolute holy grail of modern-era collecting, and the reason it's worth $45 million isn't just because of one spectacular error. Oh no, this coin has 4, count them, 4 major minting errors all on the same coin, making it what experts call a quadruple error, something so statistically improbable, so mind-bogglingly rare, that when it was first examined by professional graders, they had to call in additional experts just to verify that what they were seeing was actually real. So what are these 4 errors that make this 1984 D penny worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a private jet, more than most people will earn in their entire lives? Well, buckle up, because each one of these errors is remarkable on its own, but when you combine all 4 together on a single coin, you get something that's truly unprecedented in the history of American coinage. The first error is an extreme off-center strike, and when I say extreme, I mean extreme. We're talking about a 45% off-center strike, which means that nearly half of the coin's design is missing, shifted completely off the planchet, and what makes this even more remarkable is that despite being so dramatically off-center, you can still clearly see the date, 1984, and the D mint mark, which are absolutely crucial for authentication and identification, and Lincoln's profile is cut off right through the middle of his face, creating this haunting, almost artistic appearance that's instantly recognizable. The second error is a massive broad strike, and this isn't just a slightly oversized coin. This penny expanded to approximately 22 millimeters in diameter, which is nearly 3 millimeters larger than a normal penny, and if you were to place this coin on top of a regular penny, it would extend past the edges all the way around, creating this dramatic size difference that you can see and feel immediately. And this broad strike was so severe that it actually created a unique wavy pattern on the rim of the coin, almost like the metal was rippling as it spread outward during the strike. The third error, and this is where things start to get really insane, is a full double denomination strike, meaning this coin was struck first with Lincoln penny dies, creating that off-center broad strike we just talked about, and then it went through a nickel press and was struck with Thomas Jefferson nickel dies, and you can see clear evidence of both denominations on this coin. On the obverse you can see parts of Lincoln's profile mixed with elements of Jefferson's profile, and on the reverse you can see the Lincoln memorial overlapping with Monticello from the nickel design, creating this surreal, almost dreamlike appearance where two completely different coins seem to be merged into one. But wait, there's more, because the fourth error on this coin is something that numismatists call a struck-through error with retained striker, and this is extremely rare. What happened was that during one of the striking processes, a small piece of metal, possibly a fragment from a broken die or a piece of debris that had gotten into the press, got sandwiched between the die and the planchet, and when the strike occurred, that piece of metal created an indentation on the coin's surface end. It actually remained embedded in the coin. You can see it with the naked eye. There's a small metallic fragment actually stuck in the surface of the penny, and this adds yet another layer of rarity and value to an already extraordinary coin. Now, you might be wondering, how is it even possible for a coin to have 4 major errors? How does something like this slip through quality control at the US Mint? Well, to answer that question, we need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1984, because this was a particularly chaotic year in the Mint's history, and the circumstances that led to this coin's creation read almost like a perfect storm of mishaps and oversights. In 1984, the Denver Mint was undergoing significant renovations and equipment upgrades. They were transitioning from older mechanical presses to newer automated systems, and during this transition period, there was a lot of confusion. Equipment was being moved around, production lines were being reconfigured, and the normal protocols and safeguards that would typically catch error coins were temporarily disrupted. On top of that, 1984 was the year right after the Mint had changed the composition of pennies from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, and they were still dealing with issues related to that transition. Planchets were sometimes getting mixed up, dies were wearing out faster than expected because of the different metal hardness, and quality control inspectors were overwhelmed trying to catch all the various problems that were occurring. And then, on one particular day in June of 1984, something absolutely crazy happened at the Denver Mint. There was a mechanical failure in one of the sorting machines that was supposed to separate different denomination planchets, and this caused penny planchets, nickel planchets, dime planchets, and quarter planchets to all get mixed together in the same hopper, and by the time anyone noticed the problem, dozens or possibly even hundreds of wrong planchet errors had already been created. The maintenance crew scrambled to fix the sorting machine and separate the planchets, and quality control went into overdrive trying to catch all the error coins before they could leave the facility, and they caught most of them. Bags and bags of error coins were pulled from production and destroyed, but inevitably, a few slipped through, and one of those coins that escaped detection was this incredible 1984 D quadruple error penny. The coin made it through the Mint's inspection process, was packaged with thousands of other pennies, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City, and from there it was distributed to local banks throughout Missouri and Kansas, and it sat in circulation, being spent and respent, passing from hand to hand, completely unnoticed and unappreciated, for over 20 years. The story of this coin's discovery is absolutely incredible, and it involves a combination of luck, persistence, and an almost unbelievable series of coincidences that had to align perfectly for this coin to be found and recognized for what it was. In 2009, a man named David Chen, who was a software engineer living in Seattle, decided to start coin roll hunting as a way to relax after work. He had recently gone through a difficult divorce and was looking for a hobby that would keep his mind occupied, and a friend suggested coin collecting, so David started going to his local bank every week and buying rolls of pennies, nickels, and dimes. and he would spend his evenings going through them, looking for anything unusual or valuable. David did this for years, going through thousands upon thousands of coins, and while he found some minor varieties and errors that were worth a few dollars here and there, he never found anything truly spectacular, but he kept at it, because he enjoyed the process, he enjoyed the meditation-like quality of examining each coin carefully, and he enjoyed the small thrill of discovery when he did find something interesting. Then, in the summer of 2015, David was going through a box of penny rolls that he had purchased from a different bank than his usual one. He had been traveling for work and had stopped at a bank in Kansas City to buy some rolls, and as he was going through these rolls, he came across a coin that made him literally drop the penny he was holding and stare in absolute disbelief. The coin was a 1984 D penny, but it looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was huge, way bigger than a normal penny, the design was dramatically off-center, and when he looked at it more closely with his magnifying glass, he could see what appeared to be designs from two different coins overlapping each other, and there was something weird on the surface, a small metallic object that seemed to be embedded in the coin itself. David's hands were actually shaking as he set this coin aside and pulled up his computer to start researching. He spent the entire night reading about error coins, looking at auction records, studying photos of famous error coins, and the more he researched, the more he realized that what he had found was potentially something extraordinary, something that could be worth not just thousands or hundreds of thousands, but potentially millions of dollars. The next morning, David called in sick to work, which was something he had never done in his entire career, and he drove to a local coin shop that he had been to a few times before, and when he showed the coin to the shop owner, a man named Jim who had been in the coin business for over 40 years, Jim looked at the coin, looked at David, looked back at the coin, and said, "Where did you get this?" "This is. I don't even know what this is, but you need to send this to PCGS immediately, because if this is what I think it is, your life is about to change." David sent the coin to PCGS with expedited service, paying extra for insurance and tracking, and for the next 3 weeks he barely slept, he couldn't focus at work, he couldn't eat, all he could think about was that coin and what the grading results would show, and when the package finally arrived back from PCGS, David's hands were shaking so badly that he could barely open it. Inside was a PCGS holder with his 1984 D penny encapsulated and sealed, and the grade was MS 65, indicating that the coin was in gem uncirculated condition with sharp details, good luster, and only minor imperfections, but it was the certification label that made David's heart stop, because listed on that label were all 4 errors: 45% off-center strike, extreme broad strike, double denomination with Jefferson nickel, struck through error with retained striker, and at the bottom of the label, in red letters, it said, "Unique, finest known." David literally collapsed onto his couch and started crying, because he knew what this meant. He knew that he was holding potentially the most valuable Lincoln penny in existence, and he knew that his life would never be the same. The coin was consigned to a Heritage Auctions premiere session in January 2016, and the numismatic world went absolutely crazy when the coin was announced. Magazine articles were written about it, news outlets picked up the story, even mainstream media like CNN and the Wall Street Journal ran segments about this incredible penny, and the pre-auction estimate was placed at $30 to $40 million, which was already the highest estimate ever given for a Lincoln penny. The auction itself was an event. It was held in a large ballroom in Florida during a major coin show, and there were hundreds of people in attendance, plus thousands more watching online and bidding by phone, and when the auctioneer brought up the 1984 D quadruple error penny, you could feel the electricity in the room. Everyone knew they were about to witness something historic. The bidding opened at $10 million, which already surpassed the value of most rare coins, and within seconds it had jumped to $15 million, then $20 million, then $25 million, and it just kept climbing: $30 million, $35 million, $40 million, and there were 3 bidders left in the race, 2 phone bidders and 1 bidder in the room, and they were locked in an intense battle, each one determined to own this once-in-a-lifetime coin. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes of bidding that had the entire room on the edge of their seats, one of the phone bidders dropped out. Then a few bids later the second phone bidder dropped out, and the bidder in the room, who turned out to be a representative for a private collector from Dubai, placed the final winning bid of $45 million, and when the auctioneer's hammer came down, the room exploded in applause. People were standing, cheering, some were crying, because everyone there understood that they had just witnessed the sale of the most expensive Lincoln penny in history. David Chen, who was sitting in the audience watching all of this unfold, was in a complete state of shock. He had gone from being a divorced software engineer who bought penny rolls as a hobby to being a multimillionaire in less than a year, and in interviews after the auction, he talked about how surreal the whole experience was, how he kept expecting to wake up and find out it was all a dream, but it was real, it was all real, And that $45 million sale changed not just his life, but the entire landscape of modern coin collecting. The 1984 D-quadruple error penny represents the absolute peak of what's possible in error coin collecting. It's the coin that proves that even in the modern era, even with all of our technology and quality control systems, extraordinary rarities can still be created and can still make their way into circulation. And it's the coin that has inspired tens of thousands of people to start examining their pocket change more carefully, because if a $45 million penny could hide in circulation for over 20 years before being discovered, what else might be out there, waiting to be found? This coin also serves as a reminder of the importance of persistence, because David Chin didn't find this coin on his first roll, or his 10th roll, or his 100th roll. He found it after years of searching, after going through literally hundreds of thousands of coins, and if he had given up, if he had decided that coin roll hunting was a waste of time, that $45 million coin might still be sitting in circulation somewhere, or it might have been spent and lost forever. The 1984 D penny is also a testament to the importance of knowledge, because finding the coin is only half the battle. You also have to recognize what you found, and David was able to do that because he had educated himself, he had studied error coins, he knew what to look for, and when he saw something unusual, he knew to take it seriously and get it authenticated. And so, as we come to the end of this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, I want you to think about the coins in your possession. Think about that jar of pennies sitting in your closet. Think about that old coin collection you inherited from a relative. Think about the change in your pocket right now, because somewhere among those ordinary-looking coins could be hiding an extraordinary treasure, a coin worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars, and the only difference between finding the treasure and missing it is taking the time to look, to really examine your coins carefully, to educate yourself about what makes coins valuable, and to never, ever underestimate the potential value of even the most common-seeming coin. The 1996 D penny worth $20 million, the 1985 penny worth $26 million, the 1994 D penny worth $38 million, and this magnificent 1984 D penny worth $45 million. These are not just coins, they're dreams realized, they're proof that ordinary people can find extraordinary wealth, they're evidence that magic still exists in this world, and they're an invitation to you to start your own treasure hunting journey, because the next great numismatic discovery could be made by anyone, and that anyone could be you. So go check your pennies, examine them carefully, look for off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchets, double denominations, die rotations, and any other unusual characteristics, and if you find something that looks different, something that makes you pause and wonder, get it checked out by a professional, because you never know, you might be holding the next $45 million coin, and your life, just like David Chen's life, could be about to change forever. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these incredible valuable pennies, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another video about rare and valuable coins. And remember, fortune favors the observant, so keep your eyes open, keep examining your coins, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one making headlines with the next record-breaking coin discovery. Until next time, happy hunting.